The most terrifying experiment of the history.
Mortgaged your life?
At least tell me where you're going, so that when you don't come back, I'll know how to fill out the report.
What's the boogeyman?
Hello, operator. An emergency, can you help me?
Just because you all have the same birthday doesn't mean that you're special.
Hi, this is Lori Lafine, and we're on Hysteria Continues.
Yeah, welcome again to the Hysteria Continues. This is episode number 8. And as ever, I'm joined by our slasher troopers, which include Joseph.
Truly a sight to behold. A man beaten, the once great chap, now a study in moppishness.
I think we've got Stephen Hawkins in the house. Welcome, Stephen.
No, it's Howard Cosell by way of the Oriental guy from Better Off Dead.
Okay. Well, no, thank you. I haven't actually seen Better Off Dead, I don't think.
Hey, whoa, a good movie.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, maybe we'll come back to that. So that sounds good. And Erik from Ireland. Howdy.
Bonjour, monsieur. My best French accents.
Fantastic. And Nathan from Tennessee.
Karate, Judo, Sumo, Samurai. That means how are you?
What a cultured show we have for you. And what a fantastic show we have for you this week. We are covering the early 80s slasher Bloody Birthday, the Killer Kids movie. And we've got very exciting. We are joined by the film's final girl. It's Lori Lafine, who is going to be joining us later. Nathan interviewed her a week or so ago, and so we're going to have her on the show talking about making Happy Birthday. Not Happy Birthday, no, Bloody Birthday. We've already done Happy Birthday to Me. So that's something to look forward to. And also we've got our regular slots. We're going to be talking our top 3 death scenes, or top 3 murders. Also going to be talking about films we've seen recently. We're probably going to do a little bit more dissecting of Scream 4. And what else have we got, guys? There was something else. Oh, Nathan's got a question for us, which we're going to discuss later. But I think before we get started, I think, Joseph, you had a little bit of feedback for us.
Yes, I do. It's from a man named John Woodward. He says, "Hi, folks. I've been following your podcast since the first episode. Discovered by doing a random search for slasher film-related podcasts on iTunes. Imagine my delight in finding such like-minded people in such far-flung regions. I am Canadian and grew up in that golden age of tax shelter horror films that produced such delights as Terror Train, Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine, Rituals, etc. Just finished listening to your show on Curtains, and it turned my thoughts to the subject of film scores. Paul Zaza, of course, composed the score for Curtains as well as Prom Nights 1 through 3, Ghost Keeper, and My Bloody Valentine. The importance of music in horror films can never be underestimated, and I thought it might be interesting to find out what your top 3 slasher film scores are. John Carpenter's lo-fi music for Halloween is fairly obvious, but I'd like to know what films you think are elevated by the choice of music, or alternately, what films are destroyed by their soundtracks. Dario Argento, I'm looking at you. Keep up the great work, guys. John Woodward."
Excellent. That's the kind of feedback we like. So if anyone else got any feedback, do get back to us. And one person I forgot to mention on the last episode was Curtis Dalton, who I believe, guys, is in Tennessee. I don't know how close he is to where you are, but he put on the Hysteria Lives Facebook group a picture of him and Dana Kimmel. Which, as we know, Dana was on the show last week with a little introduction. And
awesome.
And Curtis said that he asked her about her appearance in Sweet 16, and she pretended she didn't know what he was talking about. So there you go. So if you guys meet Dana, which I think there's a possibility is we might be meeting Dana at some point, then you got to make sure you ask her all about Sweet 16, even maybe singing that Sweet Melissa song, because I'm sure she'd love to hear it. I was just going to say before we go on, there may be a few slight sound issues with this this episode because we're using new equipment. Well, basically, there's an updated Skype version, and it's possible there may be a few sound issues. So, please bear with us. And I think it's looking okay at the moment, but we are sort of braving new frontiers with this one, and it took us a little while to set it up. So. If it sounds awful, which hopefully it won't, we'll be back to normal next episode, hopefully. So, without further ado, what do we want to do, guys? First,
we should give out the address for people to give feedback.
Yeah. All right, that is the full stop Hysteria full stop continues at gmail.com. There's your fucking full stops.
And for our American listeners,
it's a period for American listeners.
Yeah, I'll take your English more seriously when that dowdy old sandbag takes the power pot off of her head.
Who's that? Toya. And obviously, while we're talking about that, I know people have been on tenterhooks since the last episode.
Yes.
And
who won the war?
Who won the war? Susie or Toya? Well, it took me all night to count the votes. All three of them, I think. And Susie came out on top. And I don't want to crow, but I think the right woman won. Anyway. Without further ado, we are going to move on to what should we do? Should we do what we've seen recently, guys?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. What have you seen? Anything recently you want to talk about? Do anyone want to go first? How about you, Erik?
I haven't seen anything really of note, but I have been reading a book that's been discussed on the forums at the moment, and it is Blood Money, A History of the First Teen Slasher Film Cycle. I actually finished it quite a while ago, and I kept meaning to bring it up on the show. It's like a media studies textbook. It's more of a business analysis of what made the slasher films popular between 1978 and 1984. And because it's kind of academic, it's very dry, and I find it really difficult to get into. But it hits its stride sort of halfway through, when it starts discussing specific films, and it was actually turned out to be quite good in the end. For instance, the author Richard Knowles sort of makes parallels between the marketing campaign for Friday the 13th and how it sort of mimicked slightly the marketing campaign of Meatballs. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but he argues it quite well, actually, in the book. So, I had reservations about it. When I started reading it, I sort of had a little bitch about it on the forum, saying this is, the least entertaining read I've ever had. But it actually turned out to be quite good. I'm also reading an older book, Justin, that you reviewed on Hysteria Lives, called They Came From Within.
Oh, the Canadian one.
Yeah, and that is excellent. That's more my style. It reminds me actually of your style of writing, Justin, in Teenage Wasteland. It's informative, well researched, but it's written with humour injected into it, so it's really entertaining. And I'm about a quarter of the way through that, and I'm really enjoying it.
I'd recommend. Actually, funnily enough, I'm reading the Blood Money book at the moment. But They Came From Within is a really good overview of the Canadian tax shelter films, and it goes into quite a lot of detail about Curtains, My Bloody Valentine, all those great Canadian films from the early 80s. So that's definitely worth getting. And I concur with Erik. The Blood Money book is definitely worth checking out, but it's not quite what I expected it to be. It's quite an analytical study of.
It is, and it's got quite a mainstream cover, if you know what I mean. The cover looks like it's going to be another Teenage Wasteland or another Going to Pieces, but it's not. It's something for students more than for fans.
Yes. Well, there's only one Teenage Wasteland, as we know.
There is.
So, yes. Okay. How about you, Joseph? Have you seen anything of note?
I recently watched, or more to the point, recently endured an Aussie sort of slasher film called Frenchman's Farm. It's about a woman with the biggest hair I've ever seen.
Oh, I'm sold.
Her car breaks down in the countryside, and she's kind of magically whisked back in time a good 40 or 50 years. While bumbling around in the past, she witnesses an axe murder on a nearby farm before she's whisked back to her own time period. She tries to convince her friends and colleagues of her story, but no one listens as it goes. They must have had their ears blocked by the hideous feathered mullets. But now, being a huge fan of time travel stories and theoretical physics, it kind of bothered me that there seemed to be no repercussions or paradoxes arising from our time travel. Novikov's self-consistency principle and predestination kind of take a day off so we can watch the slasher movie equivalent of an insurance seminar read by John Dacre. Not really even an eerie ending can save it. It's really boring. But it does have great box art. If you've seen the box art, it's kind of has the hands holding the pickaxe, and it has a screaming woman, and it has like the warped, what do you call those? Like a wormhole like thing.
Mm. I mean, I have seen it, but not for many years, so I can't remember anything about it, to be honest. But it doesn't sound as good. I mean, the Time Crimes is probably the best sort of time travel sort of slasher movie, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's much better.
Yeah.
Much more entertaining. This movie is just, it's kind of like watching paint dry while you're asleep.
Right. It sounds thrilling, so I'm sure lots of people will be checking
That's all
it
I've seen recently. So I actually started watching. It's not a slasher movie at all, but Below from 2002. David Twohy. I hear good things about it, but I got about 15 or 20 minutes in it, and it wasn't that it was boring. I just kind of fell asleep, so I didn't get to finish it. But yeah, there's that.
Okay,
That's it.
Okay. So another sort of two ringing endorsements from Joseph there. So.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure Below is probably pretty good. I just haven't finished it.
Okay.
I didn't like it, I have to say.
Oh.
That's the same director as Pitch Black, isn't it?
Yes. It is.
Yeah, I didn't like Pitch Black either.
Okay. Well, it's a slagging off episode here. This one. Hopefully, we won't be doing the same thing to Bloody Birthday, but we shall wait and see. How about you, Nathan? What have you seen? Anything of note?
Well, yeah, I saw one thing, but before I get into that, speaking of big hair, when Joseph mentioned the biggest hair, it reminded me of Eric's review on Hysteria Lives for Aerobicide, where actually in the body count he references female with big hair has throat slit. Like he had to put in that she had big hair. I always get a laugh
it was
out
important.
of that. That's important.
It is.
Really, I watched with my other half Happy Birthday to Me last night, and it was his first time seeing it. So he, I don't know if he really liked it or not because he doesn't like slasher movies. But since I wasn't here when y'all did your Happy Birthday to Me, I guess retrospective, I just wanted to say my opinion of it. I love it very much, and I really dig the death scenes in that movie. I gotta say.
Well, maybe some of those might be turning up on our favourite death scenes section coming up shortly.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else, Nathan? Do you want to say about those?
No.
No.
That's
okay.
it.
I mean, I've only seen one film, which I haven't seen. Actually, saw about 3-4 weeks ago, and I forgot to mention last time. Was a new French slasher from 2009 called High Lane. Which is definitely worth the view. It's not amazing or anything, but it's definitely worth a look. And it's set in the Pyrenees, I think, so what you have is a group of young, sort of early 20-somethings going mountain climbing, and they basically get stuck on top of a mountain, which also happens to be inhabited by a kind of mutant killer who chases them around and hacks them up, and that's pretty much the story. But it's worth a watch. It's basically kind of wrong turn on the mountain, but it's got some quite thrilling cinematography and great scenes of people swinging off mountains on ropes while being hacked at with axes and stuff. So if you like that kind of thing, and if you're listening to this, you probably do. That's probably worth a look. I'm not sure if it's out in the States yet, but it's out.
What was
on
that
DVD.
called again?
It's called High Lane.
High Lane.
High Lane. Yeah, it's called Vertige.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but it's and it also, unfortunately, I think if I remember, it throws a bit of that torture porn in, which is so 2006. But the majority of it is still kind of old-fashioned sort of killer chasing teenagers around a mountain. So it's worth a watch. And of course, the other thing, I don't know if we were going to talk a little bit about Scream 4, because we talked about it last week with a non-spoiler review. And in case I don't know. I mean, it's probably unlikely if it suddenly becomes the massive hit. We're actually recording this episode a week before it goes live, just so we can keep on the fortnightly roll that we're on at the moment. And that's just purely because we have lives, believe it or not. So some of us have got plans. So we're just sort of working around there. But as of now, as of speaking, Scream 4 it's not bombing, but it's certainly not a hit, I don't think. It dropped 65% over this weekend, and it's going to struggle probably to make its production budget back domestically, because it's one of the things when people talk about films and you look at the budget, and I still can't believe that Scream 4 had a budget of $45 million. It just boggles the mind, because it looks great, you know.
They spent that on Courtney Cox's plastic surgery.
I know. Well, the thing is, basically, I was talking about someone about this, about Scream 4, and I think basically the first Scream movie captured the zeitgeist, captured the moment. It was a perfectly poised, when horror was dead in '96, pretty much. And you had people, on one hand, who were nostalgic, like we are for the early 80s slasher movies, who came to see it. But you had the new crowd, the people, you know, the youngsters who'd not seen their contemporaries being cut, you know, hacked and slashed to pieces, coming along as well. So you had this, they captured the zeitgeist, it was a critical hit, massive box office hit. And then, of course, the sequels played off the goodwill of those films, with their own merits or lacking their merits, whatever you might decide. But you know, basically, I think I liked the film well enough. I didn't hate it, but I think it was just, unfortunately, they misjudged when was a good time to release a new Scream film. And as much as I hate to say it, I'm glad they went this way. But I think if they'd done a complete reboot or even a remake, and I really wouldn't want them to do that, but I think it probably would have had a bigger splash at the box office. I just don't think the general public just probably don't care like they did 10 years ago when Scream 3 did like triple the business in the first weekend that Scream 4 has. And
I have a theory on this. I think the Saw films, you know, sequel after sequel kind of threw a wrench into like audience participation, like, you know, Saw and then Saw 2 and then Saw 3. By that point, everybody was like kind of getting jaded with the whole sequels. And then Saw 4, Saw 5, Saw 6, and then finally Saw 7. Everyone was like, ugh, sequel overkill. That's just my theory. And I think that, you know, seeing the Saw films with all the really high impact gore scenes and torture and just in your face violence, I think maybe people are kind of like, well, maybe the Scream film's not going to be as violent, and maybe they kind of skipped out on it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think for a film like for Scream 4 to work, because before it came out, there's like that the Rio, the animated film. It was all kind of, it's a battle at the box office between the bloody horror movie and the family animated film. And Rio's
family's going to win every time. I hate to say it.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird. If you look at the top 5 in America this week, I mean, I don't know what it's going to be like when the podcast goes out, but the top 5 films are all family films. And I know it kind of waxes and wanes a bit, but I think if they possibly waited a few more years, admittedly, Courtney Cox might have turned into the Bride of Wildenstein by that point, but it might have made it more interesting. I don't know, but it's a shame, really, because I think it's a pretty half decent film. It's not gonna, it kind of, I enjoyed it well enough, but it kind of underwhelmed me. But essentially, they were talking about a new trilogy, and I mean, what about you guys? Can you see this happening? Can you see the trilogy continue?
I watched it a second time. I liked it a little more the second time than I did the first time, but I still think it's just kind of a blah movie. It's just there. As far as it being a new trilogy, I guess you can kind of get creative, but since they killed off, most of the new cast, save for that Marley Shelton's character who played the deputy, Sheriff Dewey, they really, I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to keep sending new people after Sydney? I mean, she's kind of getting tired.
Well,
you know,
I was just going to say we're in spoiler territory now, but I think the film's been out when this goes out. It's been out sort of 3 weeks by the time it's broadcast. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, then fast forward 5 or 10 minutes of the podcast, because we're going to. I think it's probably. What do you think, guys? I mean, we could talk about should chuck some spoilers into the mix.
yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah. I mean, what about you guys? How about you, Eric? What's your thoughts on why Scream 4 hasn't lived up to its potential?
Well, you said the magic words. You said it's half decent, and I mean, of course, that's no indicator of what's going to do well at the box office. But I do believe it beat Rio to the #1 spot in the box office in the UK.
It did, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, funny enough, but yeah.
I watched Scream 2 after we recorded the podcast last week, which was the same day I saw Scream 4. I mean, I still have the same problems with the Scream series. I think they're too long, and I think they're too sort of repetitive or something. I mean, I still prefer the cheesier late 90s ones. The Scream series never grabbed me in that way. I mean, you were saying that you went to see Scream in the cinema when it first came out and you had this great audience participation experience, and I had that with Scream 2. So much so that I went back to see it for a second time, and it was just brilliant watching it with an appreciative audience. I suppose for that reason, Scream 2 has always been my favourite. But when I went back to rewatch it, probably for the first time in 10 years, it just had the exact same problems I had with Scream 4. After the first 20 minutes, I was just looking at my watch constantly because I was a bit bored, to be honest.
I mean, how about you, Nathan? Because you hadn't seen it when we talked about it last time.
Oh, yeah. See, I love all the Scream movies, and I love this one, too. I love the silliness. I love the ridiculous reveal of the killer. I mean, we're going to give spoilers, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. So like Justin said, skip ahead if you don't want to know. But when we find out the killer is this little girl, how is she able to kill all these people?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's ridiculous.
She beats Dewey almost to death with a bedpan.
She had help from the Wheatie boy who liked horror films.
He's not much taller,
I know.
Yeah, he's like a little empty-looking guy, too.
He's a caulking kid. How is he going to fight?
He is so useless because I guarantee. I mean, she could hit him one time by surprise, but then he can't fight this young teenage girl who probably weighs about 100 pounds off of him. I mean,
you're talking about Dewey, right? Dewey. You're talking about Dewey. Let me say something. Throughout Scream 4, when Sydney is being attacked by the ghost face, she puts up a really good fight. She kicks him around, she tosses him down steps. But the minute Jill pulls her mask off and she's like this little 5'2", weighs 105 pounds, and Sydney can't fight. She's like frozen in fear. It's like, wait a minute, you just kicked the fucking shit out of her throughout the whole film, and now you're just like cowering in a corner like a little bitch. What's going on here?
I mean, I agree. I thought the ending was probably the best bit of the whole film, apart from the ridiculousness of it. But of course, when I'm saying apart from, probably because of the ridiculousness of it, and the idea that the killer, this whole 15-minute of fame, taken to the nth degree of a vapid celebrity. I thought that was probably, that's the best bit about the film. Looking back on it now, it was kind of. The thing that annoyed me with this film is it would have been much better if they killed off one of the existing characters, or all of them even. I thought, I don't know where I got, I'm sure I read that the idea was to bring in a whole new lot of characters, which would then, the old lot would leave and things would carry on, but it would be, the baton would be handed to a younger, set of characters. But they all died, didn't they? Bar the deputy, who was the same age as the older characters. And I kind of guess this whole thing of like, every time Courtney's stabbed or Dewey kind of goes down, but they always come back, they're fine at the end. And it's kind of taken every bit of danger out of the film. And I think, basically Scream 4 really was a mildly entertaining train crash, which, and I think I said last week, it sounds like the story behind production would be much more interesting than the actual film itself. But also, as Erik said, it doesn't have to be a good film to be a hit at the box office. But because it's from Dimension, basically. I mean, if you look at films like My Bloody Valentine 3D or even Friday the 13th remake, which made a shed load more at the box office, even than Nightmare on Elm
it did
Street.
really well at the box office. I'm surprised they haven't done a sequel to that yet.
What, My Bloody Valentine?
Well, both.
Well,
I mean, they both
yeah.
made a lot of money.
I mean, this is the thing. I don't understand. I mean, I kind of guess with those films, you think how easy it would be to do a direct-to-video or DVD or Blu-ray movies now for a fraction of the budget. I mean, especially something like Scream. Really, there's no reason why it should cost that much money, and it just boggles the mind. But you know, I'm not wishing them onto video or to, you know. But someone I think on the forum said, and I can't remember who it was now, saying that if they did do direct-to-video Scream movies, then it opens up a whole new, you know, sort of area for them to talk about and to lampoon. But the thing that annoyed me mostly, actually, about Scream 4 was it veered far too much into the comedy area. And we alluded to it last week. But the thing that really took me out of the movie, which was the killing of the cop, the black cop, who gets stabbed.
Anthony Anderson.
Is that his name? Sorry.
Yeah, Anthony Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, it's so brutal. He gets stabbed in the forehead, and it's really kind of brutal. And you think, oh, that's actually quite horrible. The violence actually in the film is pretty graphic. But then as he dies, he says a pun, and it just kind of, I just felt it crossed the barrier too far towards a kind of scary movie almost.
I had a similar problem with when Robbie got killed. Where in the first Scream film, Ghostface was really scary.
Yeah.
Here he's almost like a caricature of himself. Robbie's laying on the ground. He's like, "You can't kill me. I'm gay." And then Ghostface kind of just tilts his head like, "What are you talking about, kid?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was just really, really sorry humor. It bothered me.
I thought the humor with the opening sequence was really good, though. I really like the opening sequence was probably one of my favorite parts. The double bluff.
Yeah,
and I think that was a nod to Killer Party. Just because Killer Party started with a double bluff too.
There was a lot of nods to a slasher movie. I mean, there's only so many variations of a slasher movie setups you can do, but certainly I think it's been again on the forums people talked about it. But I noticed when Neve Campbell's being chased across the rooftops, it's very much the scene out of Halloween 4 was a similar chase scene. I don't know. I mean, I presumed seeing from the screens and all the background stuff there would be this huge massacre at the teenage party out at the barn, and although
no one dies.
But what was kind of weird was they talk about it and I think they almost try and cover over the cracks. But I actually liked. I mean, I think Erik was saying that it's kind of, not to put words into your mouth, Erik, but it's kind of like it's all sandwich, no filling, and so much the beginning and the end are great. You know, the first half an hour and the end half an hour are fantastic. The middle is kind of, the more I think about it, the more it's kind of treading water. And in some ways, the ending, although I loved it and it was great, it just didn't have that kind of delirium possibly to it that it could have had. I was hoping they'd do, Halloween 2, the 81 nods when they went to the hospital. I thought, oh, here we go, we're actually going to get something. But as much as people hate it, I think the Black Christmas remake did that kind of hospital slasher thing at the end much better. It's weird. And someone else, I think, said on the forums that the ultimate twist would have Neve Campbell either as a killer or have her twin sister turning up. Maybe that's what they've had planned for Part 6. Whether or not we ever see a Part 6, I don't know. And at this stage, it probably looks relatively unlikely. But if any of you listening have got any thoughts on Scream 4 that you want to share, then again, just contact us and we'll read them out. So, guys, you got any more thoughts about Scream 4 now we've had some distance from it, or do you want to move on to...
I think my problem with the film can be summed up in one sentence, which is they had 10 years to make a really good movie, and this is the best we got.
Well, that happens. That's the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull syndrome.
Also, can you imagine if they actually did a Scream film with set entirely in a hospital? That would be fantastic, I think.
Well, I think
because that ghost in the hospital would be really creepy.
Yeah. I mean, it should. I just kind of got the impression, and I know you really liked it, Nathan. I had a good time with it, and I will buy it when it comes out. I will get the Blu-ray or whatever, and I mean, I'm sure I'm going to watch it many times and enjoy it. But I just got the impression that one, Neve Campbell obviously didn't really want to do it. Courtney Cox and Arquette were probably, they were obviously on the verge of going into a divorce. It just didn't gel. I mean, Neve Campbell, when she was in the first film, was fine as the plucky teenager, and then it followed her journey. But then with this, it was kind of her journey had already ended, really. And I can't see where they can go with it for the rest of the other films. But
it's just very redundant, I believe.
Yeah, I mean,
her character. At the end of Scream 3, she finds out Roman Bridger is her brother, and he's like basically bringing things full circle, and she ends up killing him off. So she's complete, and then they just kind of like, oh well, let's just bring her back just so her kooky weirdo cousin can be like all jealous of her, and it's kind of redundant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I say, the ending. I think it's a very it's actually a pretty good, pretty sharp. Parody of kind of modern fame, and I think that and that was very good, but it just didn't. Whether or not Kevin Williamson, I mean, what actually happened with the film, I don't know, and I don't want to slander or anyone, but who knows what happened with it, because obviously he's supposedly signed on for another trilogy. Then he gets replaced by is it Erin Kruger again, and then Wes Craven says he signed up to a Kevin Williamson script, and then it got rewritten. Joseph, you've seen the original script, haven't you? Was there much difference?
I haven't seen the original script. I've seen a lot of the bits and pieces of it. There's one bit. I think they have a third movie nut character, and his name is Trey. And basically, what he does is he follows around the Robbie and the Charlie characters, and he just repeats everything they say. It's like, Charlie will say, the rules of horror films have changed, and Robbie will be like, yes, in these movies you have to do this so and so, and then that Trey character will be like, yes, you have to do this so and so, repeating themselves. And I thought, that's probably a pretty good thing that they actually cut his character out, because that would have been really kind of annoying. And also, what else is there? I don't know. It's mostly a lot of just dialogue stuff. It doesn't look like a whole lot was cut. I mean, there's extended sequences. There's no real kill scenes that I'm reading. It's mainly just fleshing out the characters. But that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's Scream 4, and we might come back to it. Maybe we'll talk about it when it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray, and maybe it'll be time to return to Woodsboro. But I imagine the door has now been shut at Woodsboro, but we shall see. Okay, well, shall we move on, guys, to our top 3? And this time we're talking about favourite death scenes. And, of course, what would a slasher movie be without any death scenes? In fact, there are actually a couple of slasher movies without death scenes, or without real in inverted commas deaths in them. But of course, it's the raison d'etre of a slasher movie is the death, and certainly after Friday the 13th, it all became about the creative death, how you could kill people creatively and trump the other person. So, shall we start with who wants to go first? How about you, Erik? What's your number 3?
Okay, my number 3, I've chosen. I should say up front that there's just so many deaths to choose from. You're probably going to pick ones, and I'm going to be thinking, oh, God, why didn't I think of that one? But my number 3 is for cheesy reasons, because this is a really cheesy death, and it's the character of Mike in The Mutilator, played by Maury, one credit only, Lampley. The reason is that it's his thespian skills that make this kind of memorable, if you'll excuse me slagging him off. He plays this guy called Mike who's wandering around a garage or a boathouse or something, and he's delivering his dialogue with all the emotional range of a Jaffa cake, and he's attacked with an outboard motor, and as it chops up his insides, his reaction is not one of pain, it's not one of horror, it's one where he slightly waves his head from side to side and goes, as if he's just sort of waking up or something.
Yeah.
But the thing about this poor man is that he's not the worst actor in this film. That goes to, there's a shopkeeper at the start of The Mutilator who delivers the following line: "Dumb college kids talk themselves into buying 2 6-packs instead of 1." And like, she only has to deliver one line. She can't even do that without looking directly into the camera. But yeah, my number 3, in a film filled with some interesting deaths, it's Mike in The Mutilator.
Excellent. I'm sure that film we will cover at some point soon. So thank you, Erik.
You just made Amanda very happy saying that.
Oh, is Amanda a big...
That's one of her favorites, The Mutilator.
Mine too.
And just a quick shout out to Amanda, who may be on the Travelator. Is it Travelator? What the things you get in gyms? She listens to our podcast while she works out.
Hello, Amanda.
Hello, Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
And she likes Beverly Hills 90210 as well.
Does she want the new version or the old one?
The old one, of course.
I was going to say.
So that's what I've been saying. The hysteria continues, discussing slasher films and whipping people into shape since January of 2011.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And now we're heading towards the balmy
It's not
summer.
working for me.
No.
No.
Well, I don't even know what. It's a Travelator. Do you get are those in gyms?
Put down
or
the Kit Kat.
airports?
I can't.
Amanda either uses the treadmill or the elliptical. I can't remember which one. I think it's the treadmill.
Yeah, Travelators are airports, aren't they?
Yeah.
So anyway, shout out to Amanda. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. So, but no, thanks, Erik. How about you, Nathan? What's your number 3? Is this the one where you wanted me to play? Is it this one?
Oh yeah. Basically, this death scene is a woman. It's a cheesy death scene because she doesn't know when to shut up, and she just keeps pressing her luck until she gets killed. So yeah, if you can play that clip.
Yeah, here we go.
Love the trees and forests. I'm always having fun. Thanks for picking me up.
Well, ain't no skin off my tits. Besides, girl like you shouldn't be alone on this road. Might get late. I mean, you gonna get screwed. You like to know who you been screwed by, right? I quit these things so many times I had to quit.
Mind cracking a window?
Everybody's got a vice. I mean, the way I see it, I'm just too dumb to drink and I'm too fat to fuck.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank God somebody shut her up.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
She just kept going. And what's funny is in that scene, like Angela, the killer, it's obviously from Sleepaway Camp Part 2. Angela's sitting there and listening to her, and she keeps cringing every time the woman talks. And then finally, she just kind of shakes her head like, I can't take it anymore, and then just stabs her to death.
Fantastic.
Very lovely, very nice scene. Yes.
Beautiful scene and a beautiful movie.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Nathan.
So heartfelt and just, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, Joseph, what's your number 3?
Well, I would hesitate to call this a slasher film, although it does pretty much follow the formula. My number 3 is the barbecue bomb in Final Destination Part 2. What you have essentially is the now requisite final boom, no pun intended. This series is kind of known for where specific characters are lulled into a false sense of security by believing they've cheated death. In Final Destination 2, our intrepid protagonists are celebrating their new lease on life by sitting down at an outdoor picnic. There's a kind of a delicious nod to Happy Birthday to Me when one character is kind of nearly impaled through the mouth with a meat skewer. But the real boom, as it were, comes when the grill ignites into a massive fireball, obliterating an unlucky teen and sending his arm flying onto a plate right in front of his screaming mother. And then the film just ends, and I've always got a real good kick out of that scene.
Mm.
I haven't seen that for ages, but
it's my favorite in the series.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It is. It's really good. So.
Very good.
Opening car crash scenes is great.
Because that's the thing, Final Destination or the films, they are essentially slasher movies, aren't they? Just without...
And wall-to-wall creative deaths as well. You could just pick from those 4 films alone.
Absolutely. And are they not making the final... Well, they're making another one, aren't they?
I think so, because I think the 3D one did really good.
Set on a suspension bridge. Set on a suspension bridge. The new one is set on a.
Oh, okay. Which is a bit not weird, but they've kind of done that to death, really, haven't they? That kind of because what's the film with the bridge collapsing? The Mothman Prophecies. That was had a bridge at the end collapse, didn't it? And there was another film. I think it was a Thai film. They did the same thing, but yeah.
Also, they did that in Cloverfield, where they're on the bridge going out of town, and the monster's tail hits the bridge, and it kind of collapses the bridge, and a bunch of people get killed.
Yeah, well, it'd be sort of interesting, but I'm surprised I haven't done a train crash one yet, and maybe that'd be too expensive.
They did at the end of part 3. But
did they? Okay. So I haven't seen. Don't own any of them. I'm ashamed to say, but I've seen all of them when they came out the cinema. Actually, I just watched Supernatural, not this week's one, but the week before, and they do a Final Destination episode where all the characters are dying in creative ways by lots of weird things happening, and so if you watch Supernatural, it's worth checking that out. So,
I really need to check this show out. Everyone's kind of recommending it. It sounds pretty good.
Well, Supernatural, you not watched it yet?
No. I always assumed it was really silly and just kind of like soap opera-ish, but everyone's saying, no, it's really good. Give it a chance, so I might have to.
Yeah, well, I like it for various reasons. Okay. Well, my number 3, I've got a top 3 here, and I'm kind of like, it's kind of like, how do you choose? It's like having a big vat full of pearls with all the death scenes from slash movies, and which one do you choose? So I'm going to keep what I was going to be at number 3. I'm going to keep to number 1, but my number 3, I think I'm going to go in reverse order, is a film we've already talked about, and that is Graduation Day. And there's a fantastic trash aesthetic in that film where they just got to the point, even though it was made at the height of the slash movie, where they are taking the piss basically. And I do love the death scene where the football jock gets killed with an American football with a big javelin or spike at the end of it thrown through the air, and you just have to think, what kind of mad person would have come up with such a death scene? And it would have been so difficult to actually have made work. And that's why I think it's such the cheesy charms of that. I just really like that scene. It's kind of one of my favourite slasher movie death scenes because it's so damn ridiculous. So well, that's my number 3. Should we move on to number 2s? Who went first? Was it Erik?
Which was me. Yes.
Yes. What's your big number 2? It never fails to amuse, does it? That?
Yeah. No.
We always have to do the number 2 joke every episode.
I think we do.
Of course.
It's tradition.
It's kind of
Yeah.
It's kind of
It is.
Well, we'll see if you can top us, Joseph.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Just let me unzip my pants here.
So
I don't understand.
Shut up. Just
number 2, moving on, it's Halloween 2, the 1981 version, obviously. Now, as I mentioned in the first podcast we did, this was the very first horror film I saw, and it made a huge impression on me, and it's a film I still love to this day, and I find it really suspenseful, and I find the horror sequences really effective. It's got a number of creative deaths in it, and the one I've chosen probably isn't the one you'd think. I think the obvious one to go for is the head dunking in the water, and the big booby lady getting her face burnt off. The one I'm going for is for the nurse Jill, and she's the character who gets the scalpel in the back and she's lifted off the ground and her clogs fall off. Now, the reason I've chosen this one is because I love the way she's standing in the corridor and Michael appears behind her, but for some reason on the soundtrack, there's no dramatic sting or shock effect that adds. I think that makes it quite creepy. I think the character Jill is really likable in it, so it's kind of a shock to see her. I mean, she's obviously going to be killed because, everyone bar Laurie does get killed in these films. And it makes Michael seem so, incredibly strong and unstoppable, and sort of adds to the mystique of the character. People tend to criticize Halloween 2 for focusing too much on the body count, whereas the first one didn't. It's fair enough, I suppose. But in terms of body count films, it's top of the league, surely. So, it has creative depths, but I don't think it ditches the suspense that the first film had. I think it's probably trashier because, you've got people taking their bazungas out and, waving them around for a few minutes. But, Halloween 2,
Like you did this morning.
Like I did this morning on the balcony for about 5 minutes till the clouds came out.
You're nice tits.
We won't we won't talk about Bloody Birthday, but too much. But just talking about Bazongas, I forgot how many breasts there were in that film. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But yes, Halloween 2 is a worthy sequel to a wonderful film, and that's I mean, I think that's one of. I mean, hospitals are fantastic, aren't they? Places for slasher movies, and I think that's a brilliant choice, Erik. Thank you.
Thank you.
And okay, about Joseph, what's your big number 2?
My number 2 is the kidney heist in Urban Legends Final Cut.
Okay.
If you ever wanted to see one of the obnoxious real-world cast members get their just desserts, this is your chance. Jacinda Barrett playing Lisa, I believe it was, she wakes up in a tub of ice, and she kind of realizes that she's the unfortunate victim of the old kidney heist. There's a hilarious bit where she calls 911, and she's kind of met with disbelief from the operator on the other end of the line, and she's like, "Listen, honey, I've got Princess Di on line 4. I gotta go." And then what follows is her attempted escape through the bathroom window with a killer nipping at her heels and a rabid dog barking at her below the window outside. The killer attempts to pull her through the window by digging into her wound in a rather gory close-up detail. When he finally manages to pull her back in, she ends up breaking most of the window pane, and which he uses to decapitate her. It sends her head falling into the ground outside. And then the final gag wouldn't be complete without the killer tossing her kidney out the window, where it's immediately eaten by the dog. I love that scene. It's a really good scene in a otherwise kind of silly movie.
But I quite like that sequel, I have to say.
Oh, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, because
it's really good.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, it's got Hart Bochner in it, isn't it, from Terror Train and Apartment Zero, and it's not a bad sequel at all. I mean, it hasn't got quite the cheesy charms of the original Urban Legend, but I think John Ottman did pretty well with that film, didn't he?
Yes, he's a film composer, and that was his first directorial job, and I think he did a really good job. It's a little disjointed, and the tone kind of shifts throughout, but it kind of has these serious moments, and it has like awkward comedy moments, but for the most part, I think it's a little underrated.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm talking about films. We were talking about Scream 4 earlier, and obviously Urban Legend and the sequel films that all came into Scream's success in the wake of the success of the first film. But there was much talk about whether or not Scream 4, if it was a massive, huge success, would actually generate more slasher movies. And obviously, I don't think we're going to be seeing a new wave of slasher movies, certainly not on the big screen anyway, because of Scream 4. But but Urban Legend is, maybe we could even do a double bill, or even a triple bill of the Urban Legend films at some point in the future.
Double, not triple. I hear the last one stinks.
Yes,
I haven't seen it, but I hear it's
awful.
Yeah,
it's supernatural. It goes the route of Prom Night 2.
Yes.
Without the charm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Oh no, thank you, Joseph, for that one. And
you're quite
Nathan,
welcome.
What's your number 2?
Well, going back to hospitals, my number 2 is from Hospital Massacre, aka X-Ray. I really like the movie to begin with. I think this is one of the creepiest hospitals I've ever seen. And the scene I'm thinking of in particular is where the nurse is walking down the hallway, and she sees something at the very end of the hallway. And at first, she's not sure what she's seeing. And as it gets closer, it's a silhouette holding up a giant sheet, like just running at her at full force. And she turns around and tries to get away, screaming her head off down that hallway. And the figure like covers her with the sheet, and it has like a giant needle, and it rams it into her and injects her. And then after that happens, she's just kind of like stumbling around like in a daze until she slumps to the floor, still covered by that sheet. I always thought that was a really creepy scene, and I always love that for some reason. It's such a weird scene.
It's a strange movie, isn't it? And again, it's got that connection to Bloody Birthday, hasn't it? With a couple of the casts appearing in the beginning of X-Ray. I watched X-Ray relatively recently again, and I mean it's a pretty awful film, but it has its charms, doesn't it? I mean, it's not, but it's some like weird kind of sort of sequences like that which you really take you out of what is a very cheesy film, and then you actually think, well, actually, perhaps if they pulled back on the cheese a little bit, they could have actually made it quite a scary movie, and that is kind of probably one of the best scenes.
The tone is a little awkward in that movie. It's like it doesn't know whether to be cheesy or whether to be, shit your pants scary. But I enjoy it either way. I mean, I think the hospital obviously is just terrific setting for any slasher film, and it's like if there's like a rainstorm in a film, I'm going to like it. If it's set in a hospital, I'm probably going to like it, except for Halloween 2, the reboot. But we won't talk about that.
No.
The less said, the better about that.
Let's just start talking about that. I like that movie. It's just kidding.
Excellent. Well, okay. Well, that's we'll
sorry
brush over that. Okay. Well, my big number 2 is never gets old.
You're so immature.
Okay, my number 2 is a film that we talked about earlier, and it's probably one of my favourite slasher movies, and most people who know me or have read my opinion know that I love Happy Birthday to Me. In fact, of course, that was the first film we chose to do on the podcast. There's so many death scenes in Happy Birthday to Me to choose, but the one that I love more than any is the one that they chose, obviously, for the film poster, and that's the shish kebab in the mouth. I just love the fact that they felt they could get away with such ridiculous death scenes in the early 80s. When you think the difference from Halloween, where Michael Myers is attacking people with a butcher's knife, to Happy Birthday to Me, which was made barely 2 years later, and they have a killer with pantyhose on her face stabbing people in the mouth with shish kebab, and for me, again, it's another great trash aesthetic. I think it's a wonderful scene in a wonderful movie, and I know it divides opinion and lots of people hate it, but if you hate it, then I don't think you can really be a major slasher movie fan, because Happy Birthday to Me is wonderfulness in a bottle, as far as I'm concerned, and that scene is the cherry on top, the bloody cherry on top. So that's my big number 2.
I agree with that one, Justin. I actually almost picked that one myself, and I have such great childhood memories of that scene because I watched that movie with my mother a long time ago, and when that scene came up where she's feeding him the shish kebab, my mother was closing her eyes. I was like, "What are you doing?" She goes, I can't watch. She's going to shove that down his throat. I can't watch."
Yes, well, fantastic. So, let's go on to the no double entendre, unfortunately, our big number 1. So, Erik, what's your big one?
Okay, my number 1 comes from what I consider wonderfulness in a bottle, and that is from the original My Bloody Valentine. And it's the sequence where Sylvia she's tormented, she's lying alone in the mining area, and all these uniforms start coming down from the ceiling. You remember the scene?
Yeah.
She comes face to face with the killer. The killer lifts her off the ground and impales her on a shower head. Now, this was a scene that was really effective even in the censored version that we had for the best part of 30 years. But it's really, really is something else when you see it on the unrated DVD that came out in 2009 to coincide with the remake. What I like about all my choices is that the gore and the violence in it is quite unrealistic, because I don't have a strong stomach when it comes to real gore. I'm one of those people, that scene in The Exorcist where Linda Blair goes to the hospital and she's having the tests done on her, and there's a scene where they stick a needle in her neck and blood spurts out. That scene, that's where I turn away from the screen, because I am kind of a wuss when it comes to real blood and real gore and violence. I don't like watching Martin Scorsese movies, the gangster movies, where these people's heads in vices and the violence is too realistic. But what I like about My Bloody Valentine's head impaled on the shower head, it's just, it's improbable. But, I mean, the effects are really, really good in it. Especially when her boyfriend comes along and sees her there with the shower head coming out of her mouth and blood dripping down the end. It's very macabre.
It's a great scene in a fantastic movie, and I agree with you, Erik. I'm not very good with real, I don't faint of real blood or anything, but I'm not a fan of
I don't
of
faint,
horrorcore.
but I don't enjoy it.
No, same here. But it's all this is what slash movies about. Most of it's make believe, and it's no secret. My favourite slash movies are not the really realistic ones. They're the more the popcorn-esque ones. And I think My Bloody Valentine, really walks that line between grittiness and campy cheesiness and honest to goodness scares, and that's why I really like it. How about you guys? That's one of your favourite scenes?
Oh, the movie itself is in my top 5 of all time. Easily.
Yeah, me too.
And I imagine
I love My Bloody Valentine too. I think it's a terrific film.
And I imagine, without giving too much away, it will be coming up rather soon on the podcast, won't it?
It will. It will.
Excellent. Uh-huh. Okay, so Nathan, what's your number one?
I'm going the Giallo route for my number one. I'm going with Opera. There's a fantastic death scene in Opera. Sometimes if I know somebody won't enjoy the movie, I'll just show them this death scene just because I love rewatching it over and over. It's the scene where the heroine Betty and her friend Mira, played by Daria Nicolodi, are in the apartment, and there's a man knocking on the door wanting inside. And, Mira goes up to the door, and she's holding a knife, and the man's trying to say, "I'm a policeman, let me in." And she very wisely is like, "No, I'm not going to open the door." And, he's like showing her his badge and his gun and everything. And meanwhile, in the back, Betty is already a frightened mess. And there's a long phone cord, and the phone is sitting in the other room. And she's like pulling the phone towards her because she wants to call the police herself. And while she's doing that, Mira is still arguing with the man at the door. And finally, Mira's like, "Show me your face." And she puts her eye up to the peephole in the door, and he puts the gun right to the peephole and pulls the trigger. And it goes through her eye and out the back of her head, all in slow motion. And then as it does that, it hits the phone in the background, pretty much making Betty incapable of calling anybody for help now. So, it was perfect for the killer that it happened that way. But, yeah, and then, as Mira's falling back, screaming and, falls dead on the floor, it all happens in slow motion, and the phone just kind of falls down in pieces too at the same time. So that's one of my favorite death scenes. I thought it was filmed, and everything about it is fantastic.
It's an amazing scene, isn't it? And it just goes to show what Dario Argento used to be able to do. And
don't you see the bullet going down the barrel of the gun as well?
Yes, you can actually see it.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, excellent. Well, no, thank you, Nathan. That's a brilliant one. And I'm sorry, I've lost track now. We've done it. Is it?
It's Joseph's.
Joseph's. Okay, what's your number one, Joseph?
I actually almost went with Opera as well, with William McNamara getting the pitching trowel up his throat and out of his mouth. But
that's a good one
I think
too.
That is a good one. But the only reason I didn't pick that was because he picked Opera, and the hard rock music in that scene kind of takes me away from it. So I didn't pick it for that reason. But my real number one is another Argento movie. It's the arterial painting scene from Tenebrae, where the woman gets her arm chopped off. This is my number one for being really, really bloody. The woman's kind of sitting by the window holding a gun, and then the killer's axe comes through the window, and it slams down onto her arm, and she starts screaming in agony, and then this river of blood kind of just pours from the stump, and it paints the drab white walls this lovely bright red color. And then she's kind of done in thereafter by the killer's axe slamming into her back and then into her front side as she's laying on the kitchen floor, kind of bleeding out. It's it kind of illustrates, that Argento he's more cerebral and visual than he is logical, obviously. And it's just really one of the best death scenes I've ever seen.
It's amazing. It's an amazing scene, and it's probably one of the reasons why the film got banned in the UK. But it's that Argento, classic Argento, isn't it? The kind of bloodshed as art, and literally as art by spraying the wall sort of crimson. Yeah, no, it's fantastic, excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph, and my number one, I've got a little sound clip here, so I'm going to play this, guys. See if you can recognise which film this is.
I really think you're overreacting to all this. The guys from the college are just always pulling crap like this. They enjoy scaring us. Did anybody bolt the cellar door?
What for? The guys don't know about the basement tunnels, and even if they did, they can't get in that way.
Oh my God.
Any guesses?
Nope.
No. All right, I don't blame you for not knowing that film, because it's from the barely regarded 3D mess that is Silent Madness.
Yes.
And the reason, I mean, it's not a great film. It's quite a fun film. I quite enjoy it. I'd love to have seen it in 3D at the cinema. But the reason I my number one death scene is a double death scene where you have, basically, it's the apex of cheesy 80s-ness, and you have a girl playing Dragon's Lair. If you remember, when I was a kid, Dragon's Lair.
I remember that game.
Yeah, and she's playing that, and she's shouting behind you at the screen, and then you see the killer's face appear on the screen with a reflection from behind her. He stabs her, she falls to the floor, but her friend is upside down in tight lycra doing aerobics, and then what the killer does, he puts a rope around her neck and attaches a dumbbell to it and chucks out the window while she's doing aerobics. And for me, that is the ultimate of kind of 80s cheesy slasher movie death scenes. It's so ridiculous, and it so screams 1982 or 83, whenever the film was made, or 84. It's just that's my number one. I mean, who knows, next week it'll be a completely different thing, but when I was thinking about it, I thought, that encapsulates everything I love about 80s slasher movies, all in one tight little package.
Can I just say something? I'm very surprised that neither of us have picked the same movie. I mean, I was really thinking that one of you. I thought Erik would pick the Tenebrae scene, but he didn't.
Okay. I probably would have chosen the opera scene if I'd thought of it, but as I said in the intro, there's so many to choose from. Obviously,
Yes, I mean, I have I got 10 more that I wish I could have brought up, but
absolutely,
I had to really narrow them down.
I reckon we can come back and do these again, couldn't we? It's
part two.
Part two, exactly. The sequel. Yes. So fantastic. Well, hope the people you're listening, you enjoyed those, and again, why not write and tell us what your top three death scenes are in slash movies, because we'd love to hear them, and we might read it out on the show. So get writing. And without further ado, I think we're going to have Nathan is going to pose a question to us.
Oh, yes. And Joe knows all about this, too, because he goes with me to our friend Greg's for Friday night movie nights. Grant. That's what we call him, Grant. But he... we watched Ghost Story recently, and if you've seen that, it's not the kind of movie that you want to do like a Mystery Science Theater, like joking around during the whole movie, because there's some jump scares, there's a lot of like stark images, it's got some creepy scenes in it, and we have
very plot heavy.
Yes, exactly. And we have a friend named Scott that comes over every once in a while, and he's notorious for ruining a movie. So I told Joe, I said, he's going to ruin this. I know he will. And it was getting to a particular scene in the movie where, the music was building up. It was a dark house. I mean, you knew something was going to happen. And suddenly he just looks over at, Greg, and he just says, "Oh, you remember, Sally Fannie Mae? I ran into her the other day, and this is what she had to say." And it's been 10 minutes talking about this person who we have no idea who she is. Yeah. And completely ruined the movie because, he does that every movie we watch. So he's like what I call the movie destroyer, because he destroys a good movie every time he shows up. So I guess my question to you guys is, what is it that people do that really can ruin a movie for you?
Well, I'm taking off from that. I've noticed lately that, ever since I've been coming over to Grant's, that he himself is kind of, chilled out with the talking. When we watch a film, he's pretty much quiet for the most part, which I like. But when you have Scott or Jamie over, they're like, "Hey, guess what I did this weekend? And then just keep talking over and over. And it's bad enough that, Scott brought over that awful smelling Chinese food that about killed me, but he just would not shut his goddamn mouth, and it really just irritates me, and I can't stand it. When if it's a movie like, say, what's a really bad, but like Nail Gun Massacre, if you want to, yap and just kind of talk to it, that's okay. A movie like Ghost Story that you have to pay attention to, there's really good jump scares, and you got some yokel over there going, "Hey man, my girlfriend licked my balls yesterday. You don't really want to hear something like that. Of course, I don't think Scott really said that, but I like to make fun of Scott. He's the loser of our group. He's a real big loser.
Does he listen to the podcast?
No.
No, well, there you go.
Okay. Yeah.
I actually wish he would, because you're a loser, Scott.
Oh, poor Scott.
Poor man.
Anyway, yes. Okay. Well, in that character assassination,
he brings it on himself. He's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. Yeah, a liar. Anyway, go ahead.
No, what about you, Eric? What things annoy you?
I hate when people get sick on me and when I'm watching a film.
Sick?
Yeah.
What, they sick
happened,
on you?
I can imagine it would ruin a film if it happened.
And has it happened?
No. I'm just imagining. I'm just trying to imagine. No, what does, I agree with the boys, what they're saying. You are boys, yeah? If you're watching a serious film that demands attention, like, for instance, a giallo, that it's kind of more plot heavy than the typical slasher, you want people to shut up. You really need it. And it annoys me when people talk. But other thing that annoys me is when people have laugh at films that I find suspenseful and take seriously. For instance, I remember going to see The Exorcist at a retro screening in the early 90s, and it was quite a full screen, and everyone was laughing at it, and it destroyed the movie for me. And an unconnected screening of The Exorcist 2: The Heretic, there was a John Boorman retrospective in Dublin, and that obviously they had to show all his films. So Exorcist 2 was put on, and only about 10 people showed up. There was this one woman there, and you could tell she was a real film snob because she was laughing at all the poorly delivered dialogue and all that. Really loud, and all I could think of was, "Oh, shut up, woman! You're above the film. Okay, you've made your point. Now, fuck off."
Yeah.
Hey, Eric, let me ask you a quick question. What about when you go? What about when you go to see a movie and you have to cancel someone?
Yeah, that's tricky as well.
Yes, we're moving swiftly on to. Sorry.
Yes, your thoughts, Justin.
My thoughts. Well, the thing I really hate is when you get people who aren't into horror movies or slash movies, and they say, "I want to watch something really scary," and they go, I get really, really scared by films. But I want you to show me the scariest film you've got. So you think, okay, well, you try and quiz them and ask them what they want to see, and then you show them what you think is a really scary movie. And then they go, that was rubbish. It wasn't scary at all.
I know this
thing,
and
it's just all the time. I get this all the time. And we had some friends around last night, and they said, we want to watch something really scary. And I sort of said, okay. So I got like a little block of DVDs down, and I said, well, here's something that's cerebral but scary. And we went with The Exorcist 3. And I said, you can have something cheesy or something fun, an action movie or whatever. They won't watch kind of early 80s slasher movies. They only like kind of newer films. So I thought, well, The Exorcist 3 is a fantastic film, and it's got loads of really scary set pieces in it. And they just sat there and they just went, oh, it's really boring. They just weren't into it at all. And I should have learned. I made them watch Session 9, and they said at the end they thought it was really boring. It's just one of those things. It's kind of like people who say they get really, really scared by films. Actually, the people who don't get scared by films, they just think they do. And I just find it, it just really irritates me because, like you were saying, Joseph, if you're watching something like a Nail Gun Massacre, it's a great party film. Well, a film you could sit with people sitting around drinking beer and eating popcorn and laughing. Then that's great. But when you've got a film that demands your attention and demands, a little bit of thinking behind it, it can be really irritating when people don't take it seriously enough. And that's one of my pet hates. But just a funny little side was we went to see Black Swan, when it was out, and we were at the cinema, and it wasn't that full. But the people behind us were eating really, really loudly. So every 30 seconds, there was this kind of like this, and it sounded like they were chewing on a bone. And we were sitting, and we were like on these seats below a kind of wall, like the way cinemas go back, and so we couldn't see them. So we were turning around and we were looking, thinking, "What the hell?" Because we couldn't see them, and we were thinking, "What the hell are they eating?" And every minute or 30 seconds, they'd be like, and so in the end, the person I was with said because I was just thinking I'll just sit there and be very British and not say anything, and the person I was with said, right, I've had enough, I'm moving, we're going to move. So stood up, turned around and gave them these people right behind us gave them really kind of, sort of fuck you look. And then we walked and we moved down to the front and we sat there. We were there for about 30 seconds and then we heard this and we thought, what the fuck? And then realised it was actually the projector. Something was wrong with the projector. So those poor people, if they're listening, which I very much doubt they are, but if they are listening, then we do apologise for giving you that fuck you look, because it wasn't your fault, and maybe they thought it was us. So yes, I mean, I'm sure this could run our thoughts about what we hate in our fellow moviegoers. But have any other thoughts, guys?
Well, I was just wondering. You're saying introducing
Nathan.
Introducing non-horror fans to horror films. I'm just wondering, have any of you guys ever shown pieces to a non-horror fan? I'm just wondering.
Yes, I showed it to my other half.
And
he thought it was the dumbest thing he'd ever seen.
But was he entertained?
We were drinking, so we were a little drunk, so I think he did some entertainment out of it. But my favorite thing is at the end when the corpse reaches up and grabs the guy's crotch and rips it, he just kind of slowly looked over at me and said, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Because I had the same experience, Justin, as you. I mean, friends wanted a scary film, so we showed them Friday the 13th, and that went down a treat.
Yeah.
And then I showed Prom Night after it, which sent everyone to sleep.
Nathan, going back to talking during a movie when you're trying to watch it, you remember the time when we were at Grant and Jennifer came over and we were watching a serious film, and she sat down and her and Grant just basically for the next 45 minutes talked about Brad Pitt. You remember that?
Oh, we were watching The Woman in Black.
Yes, because that was a very scary movie.
Every time she showed up, Jennifer kept saying, "Oh, look, it's the woman in eggplant. That's not black. That's eggplant." So every time she showed up, she kept saying that. And I'm like, okay, I mean, completely destroyed the movie. I mean, it's...
Yeah, and see, that's a movie I think Greg really would have liked if he didn't have some, little cunt yammering in his ear the whole night.
The ultimate rude word.
That was the ultimate gasp right there.
Gosh, it's character assassination time on the show.
Well, can I say, I like all these people we're talking about. I'm not going to insult like Joe. I'm just going to say that Scott, stop talking during the movie, please.
I don't know about you, Eric, but I don't want to get on the wrong side of these two.
No, I feel like a child in the middle of a divorce or something.
Go to your room.
Yeah.
And listeners, you should write in and let us know what annoys you at the cinema or in your fellow moviegoers when you're watching them at home.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, well, let's move on, shall we, to the feature presentation. Nathan's going to introduce the movie, but before we get to that, shall I play the trailer for our feature presentation, which is Bloody Birthday?
Some birthdays are unforgettable. Bloody Birthday, the overwhelming horror. Bloody Birthday. It is a night that no one will survive.
Right, Nathan, to take it away.
Yes. In 1970, 3 children were born at the height of a solar eclipse. And 10 years later, when their 10th birthday is coming up, they snap. They just start killing people. And this is kind of the astrologer's horror movie because we're led to believe that it was because of the eclipse that the moon and the sun were blocking Saturn, which is supposed to control your emotions if you believe in astrology. And that is the reason they're sociopaths. They have no, real emotion about anything. So, they think that actually killing people is a game to them. And it's up to a young teenage girl and her little brother who stumble upon the secret to stop it. And I have to say, I've always enjoyed Bloody Birthday very much. And, if you know, back when we did our favorite heroines, Lori Levine was in my top 3 because, I think her character is very likable in this film. And, it's a really good film. I like the score, and I really enjoy the performances of the 3 kids because I believe Erik was the one that said at some point that you just want to smack them. And that was kind of what you're supposed to think, is that you really want somebody to finally stand up to these kids because, they've wreaked bloody havoc all over this whole town. But yeah, it's always been a favorite of mine because I can remember there was a video store, and Joseph knows what I'm talking about, called Chatsworth Sales, where I used to live.
Great video store.
It had a huge wall of horror, anything you could think of, big box, clamshell, small box, and the artwork is just right there on display. And Bloody Birthday always jumped out at me. I know you guys know the artwork I'm talking about, with the cake, with the fingers as candles on it, and the blood kind of running down the cake. It's and you expect Bloody Birthday to be just very ultra cheesy. And when you watch it, you realize, yeah, there are some cheesiness to it, but it's actually played really straight for the most part. And I thought they did a really good job with it. So I was curious what your guys' thoughts is on it.
How about you, Erik? What's your thoughts on Bloody Birthday?
Yeah, well, if somebody handed me this film and said it was a cross between Village of the Damned and Halloween, then I think it would deliver exactly what I was expecting. I like Nathan. I think it's a great little film. I think one of its strengths is the evil kids in it are really terrific. The actresses are really, really good at being evil. I mean, as I said, you just want to slap them, but that's the whole point of the film. And contrasting that, you have Lori Lethine and her little brother, who are really likable characters, and you're really rooting for them, particularly as it gets towards the end. There's a real dark tone to some of the scenes, like when the girl lures her father out. Spoiler alert, sorry. When the little girl lures her father out and just stands there smiling as one of the other kids is beating him over the head with a baseball bat. That's really, really creepy, I think. And she's kind of just standing there smirking. And, all bets are off at that stage because, these kids are capable of killing anyone. They don't care if they're family members or not. So it's really dark that way, and I imagine it must have been even slightly controversial, back in the day, having killer kids. The killer kid subgenre is actually, I'm just thinking back of it, and there's some really good movies in that little subgenre, like Who Can Kill a Child, the 1975 Spanish film.
That's great.
Which is terrific. And there's a British one recently called The Children. Did you see that one?
That's a good movie. I like that one.
That's a great movie.
Good. I thought it was really, really good, and it's like Bloody Birthday, but it goes even further in having the adults fight back, as in kill children, which is something you don't see a lot in horror films. But Bloody Birthday is terrific. Lori Lethine is excellent in it. I love her high-waisted jeans. There's a lot of high-waisted fashions in this, I noticed, because the little girl, Debbie, she has a skirt that goes up to her armpits, basically. I can imagine. Justin, you're the oldest member. Did you wear trousers, or did you even wear skirts like that back in 1980?
I don't recall it. It's so long ago. But I wasn't wearing clothes in my mother's womb. So anyway, carry on, Erik.
Wow.
No, actually, no. Funny enough, because I was. Pretty much, I was born a little bit before the kids in this movie were meant to have been born, about a year before. So it's kind of weird. I can't remember when I first saw it, but it was probably when I was about 13 or 14. But I wouldn't have been much older than the characters in the film, and I had been born around the same time. So that kind of added a kind of weird resonance, I kind of guess, to it. But I've got some kind of interesting behind the scenes or things, and of course we're going to be talking to Laurie in a second, an interview that Nathan did a few weeks back, which she talks about the film, and it's really interesting, her recollections of it. But how about you, Joseph? What was your thoughts about the film?
Oh, I love Bloody Birthday. Like Nathan, I agree that Lori Lethine, she's a really a focused kind of down-to-earth heroine, and she pretty much towards the end of the film, she doesn't take any of these kids' shit. And there's one scene where she mentions it in her upcoming interview, and we've talked about it before, is where one of the children, she has a chance to hit him over the head with a fishbowl. But instead of doing that, I guess she just, she splashes him, and then she subdues him, and then she, I guess she hog ties him and throws him in this crate, and he's like, let me out of here, I'll go home, I won't do anything. She's like, yeah, right. And then she just kicks the crate, like, shut the fuck up, you little brat. I always got a kick out of that scene. And then you have Julie Brown, who continuously goes topless throughout the whole movie, dancing in her room in front of her mirror. I think Erik does that a lot.
Yes.
And be on the lookout, American Ninja fans, for a very young Michael Dudikoff playing her mop-top boyfriend. He has like very little dialogue. I don't know. It's a really fun movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously, yet it's cheesy, and yet it's kind of creepy. Like you said, Erik, that scene where they put the skateboard on the steps. He slips on the skateboard, and then the little girl's just kind of sitting there going, giggling while he gets the piss beat out of him with a baseball bat and kills him. And then you have the is it Bobby or Billy Jacoby? Which one is it? Bobby?
Billy. I think it's Billy. Isn't it?
Billy. Yeah, he went on to play Buddy in Just One of the Guys. Well, where in that movie he was really corny and silly, and here he's really, really, really creepy. He's got those big wireframe glasses, and he's got that shit-eating grin, and there's a scene where he just holds the gun up and he's going to shoot. Was it the teacher in the back of the head, Nathan?
Yes, he shot the teacher.
Right, and he's just got that grin on his face, like you just want to punch him in the face, and you're like, you little brat. But yeah, Bloody Birthday. Obviously I wouldn't put it in my top 10, or maybe not even in my top 20. But it's a really fun movie, and I can watch it pretty much any time if I want to kind of get out of a bad mood or anything. It'll kind of perk me right up.
I really enjoy Bloody Birthday, and that kind of really stands up. I mean, it's not a great movie, and like you, Joseph, it wouldn't be in my top 20, but it's a fun movie. It does something. It basically kind of brings. I think, as you, Erik, said, it was kind of like the bad seed crossed with Halloween. And the thing that really made me not laugh exactly was Ed Hunt, who obviously is the director of the film. Is aping Halloween to the nth degree, especially in the scene where Laurie and Julie's character Beverly walk down the Halloween streets, while Laurie clasps her school books to her chest, and they walk down. It
looks like the exact same street as in Halloween.
Well, it's almost identical, because they talk about her boyfriend Paul, which of course there's Paul in Halloween, wasn't there? And then Beverly's father is the sheriff, and so she's basically playing the Annie character. And the dialogue, which I'll play just before we talk to Laurie, it's so kind of like Halloween. It goes beyond sort of homage to complete rip-off, but in a kind of fun way. And the other things that I kind of I really liked about the film was obviously the opening scene, which is classic teen slasher. Once they get there's a very effective scene at the beginning of the film where there's a montage of clips of the eclipse and the sounds of the birth of the babies being born. And the doctor is Mel Ferrer, who comes out and says to the nurse, "You can't stand around looking at this eclipse. You've got to go and deliver these babies." So there's this idea of a nurse stood out there watching an eclipse, like as you do. But then it goes from June 1970 to June 1980, and those horny teenagers who, for some bizarre reason, and it's kind of think it's a good idea to have sex or try to have sex in an open grave.
Goths. That's what they are.
Sorry?
They're goths.
They're goths.
Obviously.
Yeah. Well,
they listen to Susie a lot. That's what inspired them.
I don't think
you've never had sex in the graveyard, Justin.
I've never had sex. I don't think, have I? No,
what?
But there's a kind of symmetry there, which is kind of like a playfulness, because the whole idea is they get killed by, you don't see it's the kids, but they're in the open grave, and then he gets whacked over the head repeatedly with a shovel, and she gets strung up or strangled with a skipping rope. And then, of course, they fill the grave in, or he soon starts to do it. So it's a kind of playfulness there, which I thought was kind of good fun. And Talking of fashion, I mean, obviously Laurie is modelled on another Laurie, which is, well, the character Laurie Strode in Halloween. I love her big yellow headphones. I wish I had a pair of those. And I've got the film was released in the UK on Ivor Film Services, who brought out also Torso, and it's got the fantastic artwork, which has got the birthday cake with the fingers coming out, one and severed, but the rest with flames coming out. But I love the way it talks about her character. I won't read the whole thing, but it says. A pretty high school teacher, Joyce Russell. Her interests are boys, rock music, and astrology. So I'm not quite sure where they got the rock music from, but of course Laurie, slightly awkwardly, not Laurie, but the film kind of shoehorns this astrology angle into it. But that's really good fun to try and explain their kind of the sociopathic tendencies of these children. A couple of other things was if boobs are your thing, then this film has boobage. Not every woman in the film takes the top off, but a lot of them do. I like the scene, especially the scene when Timmy, her brother, gets trapped in the fridge, which I thought was really quite suspenseful. And the kid who plays her, he was in the Amityville Horror apparently, and also went on to be in E.T. as well. Mm-hmm. And I thought the other thing that was kind of stab at, excuse the pun, at kind of relevance was another classic slasher movie scene where the couple are having sex in the passion wagon, and then Billy turns up and shoots them dead, which is kind of like an obvious nod to something like Son of Sam. And one of the most interesting things I thought about the film was the fact that it showed, unlike, I was trying to think actually, most slasher movies, you don't see funerals for the victims. Because in a lot of ways what it does is it actually makes it realer, with a slasher movie. And you think how many funerals there must have been after the Friday the 13th movies, and if obviously they're not real, but you never see a funeral in the Friday the 13th movie. But because this film takes place over days, or weeks or months even perhaps, is you do see not half but quite a number of the characters being buried, and everyone mourning around the graveside, which is not something you normally see in kind of slasher movies, and that kind of gives it kind of some kind of like weird kind of resonance, I kind of guess. I mean, I've got some quite interesting information about how the film, was released and stuff like that. But I'll talk about that a bit more in a bit. Guys, have you got any other things you want to talk about this before we go to Laurie's interview?
I just wanted to say that it's funny you mentioned the funerals, because I think one of the creepier scenes in the movie is during one of the funerals at the beginning, where the little girl Debbie is crying, like she's just mimicking what her family's doing. She's obviously has no real emotion about it, and she's like, it shows her like really breaking down and crying at her father's funeral, and then then she kind of like looks up at the other two kids, and she kind of looks over at Timmy, like that's our next victim, and kind of nods to him like, you know what to do. Like she's already planning their next murder at the funeral of her father. I think that's kind of weird and creepy.
Yeah, I just want to say something about the Halloween allusions that you mentioned, Justin, that, Laurie's sort of like Laurie, and then the sheriff, the two films had the sheriffs. We picked up on that when we watched it at Grant's back a couple months ago, and I agree. There are lots of references, even from walking down sidewalks and, having those long shots of the town in the background, sort of. Hello.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was listening to what you had to say. I was
I'm done.
Dropped off.
I'm done.
No. I mean,
I just want to say I love the scene where she throws that lamp and hits Debbie with it, because I was thinking somebody do something to this girl, because I can't stand it anymore. So she picks up the lamp and throws it and knocks her down with it. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I have a few more things to say about it, but I'm going to wait until after the Laurie interview.
Okay, excellent. Well, is that a good time to go into it? Do you want to introduce? Well, actually, I think you probably introduce it when it comes in. I mean, do you want to say anything before we get to it, Nathan?
I think we can just go ahead and play it, actually.
Excellent. Okay. Well, this is Nathan interviewing the lovely Laurie Levine.
Hi. It's really creepy about Duke and Annie, no?
Yeah, it's really weird. Horrible. Creepy. And Willard and I go to the graveyard all the time, you know. Why? Well, not to get buried, that's for sure. Have you done his horoscope yet? Yep. Well? Well, Willard should be flipped out over a hot little Scorpio like you. Oh, great. Hey, have you got any calls from Paul lately? No, he's busy with exams. Oh.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Nathan, and I am here with Lori Lathine, and she has graciously agreed to do an interview with us. And first, I want to say thanks a lot for being willing to do this.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And going into Bloody Birthday, how did you get involved with the film?
You know, it was, I was starting out as an actress, and there was a lot of great 80s horror films going on at the time. I was, going on all kinds of interviews for them, and it was just, another business day. I went out and read for the film and got a couple of callbacks, and, next thing I knew, it was like, show up.
Oh, cool. And, the idea of, killer kids, probably especially for the time, might have been a little controversial. Did you have any apprehensions taking the role?
No, I loved it. You know why? Because one of my favorite films was The Bad Seed. And it was like, for me, it was like, okay, the bad seed continues here, So I thought it was really interesting. And I had no second thoughts about it at all. During the 80s, all the horror films were kind of campy, which is what I loved about them. So I just thought, wow, this sounds like big fun.
Oh, that's
I
great.
didn't have any reservations, no.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of The Bad Seed, too. I think it's a really interesting film.
Oh, I just watched it again. It is still creepy.
Yes.
It's one of those. I know. It's brilliant. Just brilliant.
Yeah, and little Patty McCormick just plays that role to the hilt in that movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one of my big favorites.
I thought in Bloody Birthday that, your character Joyce and her younger brother Timmy had a very realistic kind of brother-sister relationship. I thought that was written really well. What was it like working with him?
He was great, and we did have that kind of relationship. In fact, it was really, really hard for us to get through a scene without cracking up. I have a younger brother, so it was natural for me. We goofed on each other, and, we ran around, and it was fun. He was a great kid, and we laughed a lot. Yeah.
And on a similar note, what about the 3 killer kids in the movie? What were they like behind the scenes?
They were, precocious, pre-adolescent kids, They were great, and it was just like, it was fun for them. Everybody had a great time, and we took it all, in stride, and we just had fun with it.
Okay, that's good. And Jamie Lee Curtis kind of paved the way for the classic, horror movie Final Girls. How did it feel taking over a role like that in which you were the final girl?
You mean where I didn't get killed?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a relief.
It was nice to survive.
Killed. I'm telling you, every television show, everything I did, I was always getting killed. It was like, oh, girl next door, oh my God, how did I get here? Oh, and I was dead. So it was great. I liked it. I had a couple of films where I actually survived and, got to run around and, it was great. I loved it. So, yeah, I was very happy that I finally got that opportunity.
Yeah, because I bet it's fun, in the end when you get to do the final battle with the kids.
Right. If you can call it that.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, too, is for some reason, I always love the scene where your character takes that big fish bowl, and then when little Steven comes in, she splashes him in the face with it, because for some reason, I always thought in that scene that she was going to hit him over the head with it, but instead she splashes him with the water.
Right, and you think that would have made sense, that, the audience would have been, happy if I would have blown this little kid away, but, back then, they were still dealing with children.
Yeah,
really.
Movies have changed a lot today.
They have. They have, and that's part of the whole 80s horror film scene, is that it was so campy. So, throwing I could have thrown a bowl of Jell-O at him. I mean, I could have, you know what I'm saying? That's how they were writing back then. So that's what I love about that whole 80s scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any scenes you remember filming that didn't make it into the movie?
No. The thing with low-budget films is that almost everything made it into the movie because it was on such a tight schedule. I mean, we used to make these films in 3 weeks or a month. And so there was not a lot of waste or extra. In fact, it seems like some of the films that I did that they even added stuff afterwards without any of the actors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean on that one, too. Do you have any funny tidbits or anecdotes that happen behind the scenes on Bloody Birthday?
No, just that, the kids were the kids. And so it was as lively off camera as it was on camera because there were, 4 kids, and so there was, pranks and everything. And, but the anecdotes, all I can tell you is that it was great fun. And, we hung out off camera too, and some of the other cast members as well. But I mostly hung out with the kids because they were fun to play with.
Yeah, and actually, I like your character's dynamic with Julie Brown's character Beverly too. I thought they actually had kind of a realistic, friendship in that movie too. I really enjoyed that part as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen Julie in a long time. She's gone on to do really well. She's funny. Oh my God, she's so funny. But it was like when you did a gig, you got close to the people on the film while you were filming, and then afterwards, life carries on.
If there was going to be a Bloody Birthday 2, would you be willing to reprise your role?
I don't think I could run around, especially in that junkyard scene.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
think I'd be doing that. Although you never know because I've been hiking. I don't know,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's true, right?
How do you feel about the film today? Are you proud of being part of it and the horror genre in general?
Oh, yeah. It's fun. It's fun because, my kids, it's like, what does your mommy do, right? What did your mommy do when it was, share at their class? And it's like, they had the most interesting stories about their mom. Look what my mom did, Yeah, I'm proud of it. It's just that it was a part of my life, and it's just in the fans that you meet and everything. They're interesting. It makes me laugh, and anytime anybody brings it up to me, it just makes me smile. So yeah, I'm happy about it.
I know I speak for, my fellow co-hosts on the Hysteria Continues that we really thank you for being willing to talk about these movies. It's been really fun kind of going down memory lane with you on these.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
And, I wish you, good luck. And I hope everybody listening will check out Lori's official website and look her up on Facebook, her fan page. And please like it.
Thanks, Nathan.
Does anybody know what the word murder means? Debbie?
It's when someone kills someone, like on TV.
No, honey. Not like on TV. TV is just pretend.
And thank you again to the wonderful Laurie Levine for speaking to us about Bloody Birthday, which she was fantastic in, and another great interview with Nathan. Well, we'll say another great interview because we're actually have more interviews with Laurie lined up for some of her other Slash movies, and you can probably guess what they are, but we shall keep you in suspense for a little bit longer. And also to say that we have got some amazing interviews lined up. In fact, we've got a few in the bag. And if you're a fan of 80s slash movies, you are going to be bowled over by some of the people we've got coming up in the show over the next weeks and months. And we're going to continue building on that. And we've got some really, really good interviews. I've heard them, a couple of the ones we've got in the bag, and they are fantastic. So keep tuned as ever. Guys, is there anything else you want to talk about Bloody Birthday? I mean, I've got some information about. I sort of did some digging to find out something about its checkered history. Has anything else come to mind after listening to Laurie?
Well, you know how we usually spoil films, right? Obviously, there's not much to spoil since you know that the killers are the children. But the one thing I did want to spoil and talk on is the actual ending, where the little girl and her mother. The little girl gets away because her mother has been, living in denial this whole time that her daughter is a monster. So they're pretty much leaving town. They're leaving town, and they're at this truck stop, and it shows that wherever they run, the kid's going to just keep doing this over and over and over, and she's just got that little evil look on her face again, and it kind of sets up like there could be a Bloody Birthday 2, which unfortunately there never was. But what did you think about the ending, Eric?
Yes, it reminded me of the XTC song "No Thugs in Our House."
Woohoo, ecstasy!
Yes. I did like the ending. Like the mother and daughter escape from town under new identities, but you can see that the daughter is still up to her old tricks.
Yeah, that mother was just really stupid. I mean, she
was. But I mean, in fairness now, the character of Joyce was a bit stupid as well. I mean, she agrees to go and babysit Debbie. 15 minutes from the end of the film, she says, "Oh, I'll go over and babysit her, no problem." Even though she knows she's part of this little triad of evil demon children.
That was a little bit.
I always thought she just didn't know that Debbie was also evil. I thought she thought the other two boys were.
Yeah, very possibly. But,
could be.
But because Debbie, remember when they're strangling the kid? When Joyce shows up, Debbie's like screaming, "Stop! You're hurting him! You're hurting him!" Like she's like manipulate Joyce right there.
But I always thought Joyce was aware of what was what's going on.
I do agree with you. I'm giving her a little leeway here, but I do agree that character should have, put two and two together, which she didn't.
I mean, I think it's interesting that Joseph, mentioned, and I think you, in the interview, talked to Laurie about Bloody Birthday 2. And actually, just while I remember it, sorry, just off the subject, but I don't know if you guys have seen that news that John Dunning is going to do one last horror movie. Did you see?
I read that. Was it yesterday? Someone posted that on the forums that him and who else was it that was going to work with him?
I'm not sure, but it was Andre Link, wasn't it? And John Dunning, the original producers for Happy Birthday to Me and My Bloody Valentine. And I know that John Dunning had been trying to get originally a remake or a sequel to My Bloody Valentine off the ground. And there has been a long gestation rumours of a remake of Happy Birthday to Me. So there is a buzz that this, obviously it's not going to be a My Bloody Valentine. Probably, I mean, maybe it will be. It could be a completely brand new sort of thing, but it seems, I reckon, if I was a betting man, I might put money on the fact that a remake of Happy Birthday to Me may be on the cards. I don't know what you guys think.
I wouldn't mind seeing that, actually, because I'm the one person who, while I love Happy Birthday to Me, I think it's a little long. I think if they trimmed it down a little, I think a remake might be it might be fun. Obviously, it won't topple the original, but I think it could be a good idea.
Yeah, well, let's see. But just we were talking about the Bloody Birthday and the sequel or the lack of. Just a little bit of history about the film. The film was made in 1980. It couldn't look any more South California 1980 if it tried. I mean, it's got that, it just bleeds or sweats that kind of ambience, which is obviously, if you love early 80s slasher movies, which we do, it really has that feel, which is fantastic. But there's been lots of not intrigue about it, but for a long time people thought the film didn't come out in America until 1986. That's partly because the film did come out in America in 1986 at the cinema under the title Bloody Birthday, ahead of a video release, which in the early 80s or the early mid 80s was quite. It was quite a kind of a practice thing that a film would get a re-release, like The Burning. The Burning got a re-release in 1982 before it came out on home video, as a way of kind of basically getting more information and more excitement about a film, I kind of guess. But it came out on Prism in the States in 1986, and I found this great little clip of talking about it. Was not clip, but little tidbit of information is that Prism sent out birthday cake mixes to video stores with Bloody Birthday written on them, and obviously that would be a great thing to get hold of. I've never seen one, but I'd love to see that. But the film itself was obviously made in 1980, and I was looking back through Variety, and it said that if you had time travel, if you could get in a time machine and you went back to sort of Corp Tower Centre number 40 at the MIFED Film Festival. Bloody Birthday was screening in room number 14 on October the 21st, 1980 at 9:30 in the morning. The film got sold, I think, to Film Ventures International, who also put out quite a few films. Bizarrely, the film was made under 3 titles. It was made under the title Bloody Birthday, Hide and Go Kill, and The Creeps. Now, I always presumed that those 3 different titles were re-release titles, and it was always Bloody Birthday. But in fact, according to Variety, the film hadn't settled on a title. And from what I can tell, it was released in 1981, either in February or probably April 1981, under the title Hide and Go Kill. There was another film around the same time that had the similar title, which may be why it was then re-released. It was re-released in January 1982 as The Creeps. But I've never seen any posters or any artwork or anything for either of those titles, so they may have been a very small release for the film. So that probably explains why it didn't get a sequel, because it sounds like it got a release in 1981 and 82, but it sounded very spotty. It didn't really get that much interest. And so it didn't come out until 86. And when you think how much, and Erik, will know most about this, but how much the fashions would have changed from 1980 to 1986, any audience seeing Bloody Birthday in 1986 would have immediately seen that the film was pretty dated by that point. But that was in the States. But in the UK, again, I've never seen a film poster, but it was the British censors gave it an X certificate, which X certificates were basically what is an 18 certificate now in the UK, on the 29th of March in 1982. And it also came out on video, in the video I've got in front of me, in April 1982 as well. So, I mean, that's just a little bit of the background of the film. But any other thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I have some information on the UK release as well, because I have, if you remember Starburst magazine, I know you would know it, Justin. I don't know if Nathan and Joseph. It was a sci-fi and horror magazine from the UK in the late 70s, early 80s. I'm looking at issue number 53 here, and it has a review of Bloody Birthday in it, and it's reviewed in the normal body of the magazine, which means it was probably a theatrical review. Now, it doesn't have an actual month on it, but it's the same issue as E.T., so I'm guessing it's probably the summer of 82. And it says it was playing in cinemas, I assume, on a double bill with Zombie Creeping Flesh.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting double bill.
What a strange double bill that would be.
Exactly, yes. Zombie Creeping Flesh being the UK title for, you probably know it better, is it Night of the Zombies it's called over? Or Hell of the Living Dead is another
Hell of the Living
title.
Dead.
Yeah.
Which would have been cut.
Yes,
I think it got really badly cut in this country. But yeah, no, I mean that's really interesting. I mean, it's the film also has got like quite an interesting cast, isn't it? We're full of slasher movie sort of recognisable people. I mean, obviously Laurie went on to. Did she make this before or after The Prey, Nathan?
This was after The Prey.
This was after The Prey, okay. And then obviously went on to return to Horror High. But there was Susan Strasberg, who, as someone pointed out, I was looking at the IMDb boards, and Strasberg was kind of like a very famous kind of acting coach, wasn't she? But she seems to be in a lot of these kind of low-budget horror movies. And of course, she was also in Sweet 16, and in this she plays the teacher who gets shot in the back. And then slides off a sort of a chopping board. There's Billy Jane, or Billy Jacoby, who plays one of the kids, was in Superstition. which is a film we're going to be covering very soon. One of my favourite early 80s, it's a semi-slasher, I can guess. And also X-Ray, which we talked about, which what was her name? The Elizabeth Hoy, who was the little girl in this. She played the original, she's the little girl version of Barbie Benton's character, I think, in X-Ray. Now, talking of Elizabeth Hoy, there was rumours that she was killed on an accident on, bizarrely again, April 25th, 1993. But there's some talk, is that true or is that not true? Nobody seems to know. And one of the things is the reason we get a lot of these slasher movie interviews is because we are now kind of like slasher ninjas, sort of slash stalkers on Facebook, but of course, a lot of women who got married would have changed their second name, which is why the ones who don't want to be found, it's quite difficult to track them down, to even ask if they'd like to be involved. But I would love to hear what Elizabeth Hoy thinks about her. But who knows? Is she still with us? We're trying to get hold of Billy Jane to see, and tentatively I was in contact with him months ago, and he did agree to an interview, but it's all gone very quiet there, so I'm going to stalk him a little bit more and try and sweet talk him into talking about his his time on these slasher movies, because he had a big part in this, and possibly the biggest part of as a child killer, and he was also in Superstition and a smaller part in X-Ray. So it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say about that.
The whole Jacoby family is kind of horror oriented. His younger brother was in the Tremors films. Yeah. And he was also in the scariest thing of all, which was Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Was his brother in Bad Ronald, that TV film?
Yeah. Well, actually, that might have been his brother. Was it his brother? Yeah.
Yeah, because I've never seen Bad Ronald, and I know Amanda loves it, and it's a film that I keep on sort of meaning to track down to watch, but I've never seen it. But
what year was that? Do you remember?
Bad Ronald was a 70s one, isn't it? I think.
I think it might. You sure it wasn't him? Because I was talking about his younger brother. His younger brother was in the Tremors films, at least 1 and 3, I believe.
Maybe he was. I don't know. Well, maybe if we get a chance, we'll ask him. But the only other tidbit of information I've got is that the film was produced by Max Rosenberg, who produced many Hammer and Amicus classics. Although he's American, he produced films such as fantastic portmanteau, if that's the right word, films such as Tales from the Crypt and Asylum. And I think it's one of his last films he produced was Bloody Birthday. And also it was made by Ed Hunt. I have to be careful how I say that. And he, one of his last films, but I thought he did a pretty good job on this. And again, he went from, I think he was an adult filmmaker, made softcore porno films in the early 70s, I think, or the late 60s, and which I've got in front of me, which is called Pleasure Palace and Diary of a Sinner. And
you've got the films.
I've got them not in front of me, but no, but
you've got them in the Spanish market.
But yeah, so it's interesting. Yes, not those type of films.
Justin, I'm looking this up. It's Scott Jacoby. It's his older brother, I believe.
Okay. Yeah,
it was in
Bad Ronald. 1974. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Well, that's the thing. The only other thing I wanted to say, we touched on it earlier, which is about the whole thing, and we Nathan, you mentioned obviously to Laurie about the did this cause an outcry when it came out? And obviously there's a rich heritage of killer children. From the Village of the Damned films and The Bad Seed. There was also another kind of contemporary film called The Children, wasn't there, which was the one with the radioactive kids in it. And as Erik, I think you mentioned the Who Could Kill a Child. So there's those kind of films, and but in England, which you probably didn't know much about it, but it's in the States you may not have heard much about it. But Child's Play 3 got blamed for influencing a very famous murder case here with two young boys who were about 10, actually, I think, killed a toddler. Where in fact actually it was proven that they didn't have anything to do with it. They didn't have anything to do with the film, and in fact they'd never actually seen it. But a journalist with an overactive imagination had put 2 and 2 together and came up with 5. But I think if Bloody Birthday had been released in England, 5 years later, it probably been much more infamous. And it certainly wasn't a film that got targeted as part of the video nasty sort of hysteria that happened in the UK at the time. But I think now, because of the cheese and the kind of the age and the bell bottoms and the hair and all that kind of stuff, it's less, the possibility to offend is less now, because it's got that distance. But it's, I think it's still that idea of killer children breaks so many taboos, and I think Bloody Birthday does it pretty well, and it's very entertaining as well. So, I mean, guys, is there anything else you want to say about the film? So I'm rabbiting on at.
Well, the other big taboo it breaks is having the young children as voyeurs of who's Joyce's friend Beverly, as she's undressing, looking through the peephole.
Yes,
that's I'm sure was probably even more controversial than having them as killers.
And no one's mentioned the arrow through the eye scene through the peephole. I love that sequence. It's very, very, very good. I like it.
Yes.
No, it's. I mean, that is great, and I think we are going to play out with that wonderful track that Beverly dances around her bedroom and shakes her boobies to, and pulls down her panties, which wears feather boas and stuff. And you're thinking, and she's kind of like when Joyce points out that her sister's been charging children to peer through a glory hole at her shaking a booty.
Now it's a peephole. A glory hole's a different thing.
I know, but I just wonder. Yeah, no, we won't go there. But
pervert.
But no, I just wonder. That whole thing. She was kind of shocked. But do many teenage girls do that kind of dance around their bedroom with feather bows? Maybe they do.
I don't know about teenage girls, but I do it daily.
Well, yes. Well. Maybe we'll see. We'll do a competition. See, we get people.
If you want to see the footage, please send $14.95 to.
Yeah, Nathan has a peephole in your room with a camera.
Do I?
It's your solo sex tape, Joseph.
Yes.
Hey, I'm the perfect date. I know when to say when, and I always leave myself wanting more.
Oh. It's a bit confusing, but anyway. So anything else you want to say? Moving on. Yes, we shall gloss over that. Anything else we want to say about Bloody Birthday before we wrap it up? Because we're kind of hitting the 2-hour mark again, so it's another good show. Is that?
I don't think I have much else to say about it. No,
I'm trying to think if there's. I'm just having a look through my notes if there's anything else. I don't think I have anything else of note to say apart from thank you, Nathan, for your choice. And as I said before, Laurie has recorded some other interviews which we will be coming to relatively shortly, and we have a lot more planned through the next coming months. So it seems. Sorry, go on.
I guess maybe Nathan it'd probably be a good idea to tell everyone that you run her Facebook website.
Oh yes, her fan Facebook page, and you can easily get to it if you go to her official website too, which is www.laurielethine.com, LORILETHIN. And
on another note,
who are not in America, a full stop equals dots.
Yes.
And we understand dots.
Oh, okay.
I actually built that website, so there's a little more trivia for you.
Excellent.
Very good.
It's a really crappy design, but there you go.
Oh, well, we don't need to go. Don't need to say that. Don't put yourself down, Joseph.
Yes.
And that's our job. Okay, guys. Hey. All right. Anyway, so anything else to say, or shall we kind of fade out on that wonderfully cheesy dance sequence?
Take us away, baby.
Okay, here we go. See you next time.
No one's gonna